Hey, welcome back to another stream here on Free Will Photos. Today we are going to be talking about Luminar Neo and the Genswap AI. Now, if you want to pick this program up, check the description box below. There are two links down there. One is an affiliate link that if you use that link to purchase Luminar Neo or anything on the Luminar website, I get a small commission, but it's at no extra cost to you. I greatly appreciate it, and it helps me upgrade things here on the channel, like this new wireless system that I'm testing out. So hopefully the audio is coming through pretty well. Leave comments, let me know what you think about the audio system and if it's coming through well, because every time that you guys use those types of links, I put all the money right back into the channel of upgrading equipment so I can bring you some really, really good content. Now, we're going to go ahead and jump into the computer because there's a lot to cover and I just want to kind of get started. So here we are with the with the Luminar Neo PowerPoint slides here. And I wanted to take some time to really just talk you through what it is that I'm seeing in this new version of Luminar Neo Genswap AI, and also get you familiar with some of the things that you might want to know. So first things first, all right, Genswap AI release date is the 16th of November. Depending on when you're watching this may have already passed, or it's going to be something that is upcoming, which it'll be this Thursday from the time of this live stream. The other thing I want you to be aware of is you need to have an active subscription to one of their packages, right? If you have an active subscription to Luminar Neo, or if you are a lifetime member, you have to have the Creative Journey Pass for the 2023-2024 in order to get access to this, all right? Now again, if you would like to support this channel and you don't have either of those things, or maybe you just don't have Luminar Neo to begin with, then I would kindly ask that you consider using those affiliate links, and I really do appreciate it. Now, one of the things that came up with Jenny Race AI and kind of a talking point is this commercial use opportunity. Like, can you use these for commercial purposes? And if you look down here, this is straight from the Luminar Neo Generative AI Guidelines, all right? I left that link down in the description box so you can go and read through it. And, partway through the stream, I'm going to pull it up because there are some things that I kind of want to talk about, but we'll get through the showcase portion first. But what I did want to highlight is you are not permitted to use the output from Luminar Neo generative AI features for commercial use if you did not violate these guidelines or the EULA. The EULA just stands for End User License Agreement. Now, this is a very weird statement, and I'm not sure if it's grammatically correct, but essentially what I get from this, and I'm no lawyer, but I do read a lot of material and I have to interpret it. This is saying you're not allowed to use Genswap AI unless you broke the user agreement. That kind of sounds like, counterintuitive. So I'm not entirely sure. You let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. I don't know if that was a typo on the back end, because where it says if you did not violate these guidelines, you are not prohibited. I don't know. Maybe it says you are prohibited, or maybe it should. I don't know. But as it is written on the website at the time of this live stream, this is verbatim, copy and paste, put into here. You can go check it out. Hopefully they've updated it and made it make sense. But as of right now, it says you are not prohibited to use the output from Luminar Neo generative AI features for commercial use if you did not violate these guidelines To me, that reads as you got to violate the guidelines in order to use it commercially, which then gets into an ethical discussion. I won't go too crazy deep into that. So, now, what does this mean? How do you use Genswap AI? Give me 1 second. Okay, so Genswap AI is one of those things where you got to use a prompt, all right? But before you get there, you want to make a large area, larger than the subject, and we'll talk about that when we get into it. Okay? So Mark says that the guidelines read correct to him. Oh, yeah. Nah, you're right. It's early in the morning for me. When I read that, it came across as you did not violate these guidelines. Something different. Thanks for pointing that out, Mark. I appreciate you. Uh, and yeah, keeping me straight. It's too early in the morning. I haven't had enough coffee, and for that, I'm just gonna take a sip real quick. Okay, I need coffee to think things through. All right. So here's the deal. How you should use Genswap AI. Make a larger area than you need and be sure to include shadows, reflections, and all of its parts. Very important. You want to make a larger selection than you need, and you want to make sure that you're including all of the parts, because if you're getting rid of a building and there's a huge shadow that the building is casting, you may want to know that that's going to cause some issues, or you may want to get rid of that. The other thing, don't use verbs, all right? Verbs are the things that you do, all right? Change, erase, remove, add. Those are some examples. You don't want to use verbs, because as soon as you start to use verbs, then Luminar, it kind of has some problems. And I'll show that in action so that way you can see what it does. If you get an inappropriate content error message, change your mask or change your prompt, all right? If you get an inappropriate content error message, change your mask or change your prompt. But also, if you go to the guidelines page that I have linked in the description box, you'll be able to see some of that information of what is considered appropriate and inappropriate. So that way, if you're getting those guideline errors or inappropriate content, it may be because of one of those issues, and that's why you need to change your prompts or change your mask. And then describe what you want with detail. This is important because if you just put grass, it's going to go and find whatever it thinks is grass, and then it's going to give you that, and that's what you're going to have in your image. But if you put tall grass with yellow highlights and dark green shadows, something like that, it will go and find images or create some images that make sense for that. All right. And then last one, use nouns or an adjective plus a noun. You want to describe the thing, like I just mentioned in my last example of yellow grass, yellow highlights, and dark shadows, things like that. All right. So now we're going to jump into the demonstration. And while I go jumping around on my computer, give me 1 second. Okay. And now we should be up and running on the computer. Yes, we are. So here's an image that I created, where the original, I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. The original was not that, obviously. And I'll go back over here. I'm using some images from Unsplash, primarily because I wanted to test this out on images that were already, I guess, created, so to speak, stylized, things of that sort. So we're going to go ahead and open up this image really quickly. And I'm sorry if my voice keeps cracking. I have terrible allergies and sometimes they just catch up with me, especially early in the morning. But here we have this fairly simple image, right? And what I want to do is use Genswap AI to really start to form some things in this particular image. And it's actually a very simple tool to use, which you just take the mask icon here, or the tool, so to speak, and you just paint over the areas that you want to generate new AI information for. All right. Now, you want to cover the entire area that you would like to replace the generative AI stuff with. So I'm going to make my brush size a little bit larger. I'm using the bracket keys, but what you can do is drag this little slider down here at the bottom, and I'm on select, so I can go ahead and select everything down here. But let's say, I did something like that and I'm like, oh man, I did not mean to select this particular area. Well, I can click on deselect here and I can paint this away from my masked area. So now everything is good. Now we get to the more challenging aspect of this. But this is one of those things where you kind of have to use your imagination and think yourself through it. What do you want this to do? Or what do you want to see in this red area? Well, in my mind, the original image that I made, I said I want to put this on a table. All right. So I'm just selecting more information there. So now let's say I want to put this over an open fire. So I'm going to write campfire with blue and red flames. And then I'm just going to come down here and hit swap. Note that there is a character limit. I have not gotten close to the character limit, so I feel like there's plenty of information in here. And right now the prompts are only in English. They're going to add more languages later, but right now the prompts are in English. I'm going to go ahead and hit the swap button. And what's cool is you get some boxes that pop up here, and it gives you information about Genswap AI, which this one says, feel free to mask a slightly larger area than you need. I've already talked about that. If you miss part of the subject, the results of Genswap might not be what you're looking for. That's pretty self-explanatory. Next one is use downs in the prompt, describing exactly what you want to see. For example, blue sea, big tiger. Again, these are things that I did already mention. So hopefully that's starting to hone in. And you can see that it actually brought back a campfire with blue and red flames, which is the prompt that I made. Now what I'm realizing is this is kind of just hovering over this particular campfire, and I'm not quite feeling that. So I'm going to need to reset my selection, and I'll make my brush size a little bit smaller, and I will make something like maybe like that. Nope, not that. There we go. Sometimes I click things that I don't mean to. So what I need to do is create some sort of a I guess something to hold this up, right? Because right now it's just floating. And this is where you kind of got to think through what it is that you want in your image. So I'm going to do something like that. And I am going to put iron rod table. Let's see what happens with that. I have no idea what's going to come up. I did not rehearse this, by the way. I find it more organic when I just show you how the tool works, because this is how many of us are going to be using this tool, where we're just exploring and experimenting. But if you come over here, I want to get through the rest of the tips. Try to write an extended prompt by describing what you want to get in detail. Make sure you've masked all the parts of the selected area. For example, if you're masking an object, make sure to catch its shadow, reflection. Again, all the stuff that I already covered. And then these are the terms and conditions and things of that sort. Now, as of right now, there's no way of getting rid of those prompts that pop up whenever you run this. And one of the other things that I did not mention that is actually very important is you need to have an internet connection. Now, for some reason, that did not actually generate anything for me. So maybe I need to, let's go with metal table. It's got to be something that makes sense, right? To being in fire. Because if I just put wooden table, it's not really going to help me out all that much. Now, what I think I'm having the issue with is the design that I made here. If I make a better design, like just mask and paint in over the area, as opposed to the, I'm trying to draw a table and tell it like, look, I only want it to go into these areas. That's where I think my issue's coming in. So what I'm gonna do, if this one comes back with nothing, what I'm gonna do is just mask over the entire area. Yeah, it tried. So we'll make this brush size a little bit larger. Oh, I'm hitting the bracket key, but I need to be on here, so I'm just gonna use that. And I'm just going to paint over this area. And, you know, we'll just paint over the whole area. So now I'm going to put iron table with, I'll just go with iron table. I should probably be more descriptive so that way Luminar can go and find more information. But what this is doing, same thing as Gen Erase, it's going up to the cloud. It's going to essentially analyze the image, generate the image, and then bring it back to your computer. Now, there is some local upscaling and the same dimensions, which escape me at the moment because one, it's too early, and two, I should have put it onto the slide deck so that way I wouldn't forget. But the goal here is it's going to, well, it didn't really do much of anything. So I'm going to undo that in theory. There we go. And I'll probably undo another one because I actually like the fire with the flames here. There we go. I think that was the one before. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll have to figure out something else. Maybe go back one more. Yeah, that looks a little bit more organic to, you know, having flames and all that good stuff. So I still have this floating. Oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and hit reset selection. And instead of that, I'm going to mask all of this up here because I meant to put steam coming out. So hopefully something like this is going to help it identify I want steam. Let's just type steam and hit swap, see what happens. And you can see, you know, I'm live streaming at the same time. I'm also using this particular technology. So it works fairly quick relative to what you're used to, right? It may be different on different internet connections. I have a pretty good internet connection, but just something that you should take into consideration. Okay, so it didn't give me anything there, and if it did, it's like really, really faint. Let's go with hot steam coming from a kettle. Okay, and let's try that. This is 100% trial and error, and this is one of those things where I wish we got multiple selections. Like there's plenty of space over here on the side where it can help us preview, similar to what Adobe does in Photoshop. If you are used to using the generative fill AI in Photoshop, if we had something like that where over here on the right hand side we gain some extra, I guess, not prompts, but results. There we go. Okay, so now we're getting this steam coming out, and I'm actually quite pleased with that. I think that that's pretty cool, and I can work with that, right? So let's say that this is good to go. I still think that I need a table, but I don't know exactly how to get that prompt the way that I want it to here, so I'm going to leave that alone. But I'll go ahead and hit save. And what this does is it saves to the generative creations folder. This is the same folder that Generace saves to. Now, some people are like, hey, I don't want to save photos to my computer. I completely get that, especially if you're limited on hard drive space. So what I recommend is, one, you have to save it to that particular location, but you can then drag the image, and I can drop this back into my Unsplash folder. And of course, because the title is the same, it's not letting me move that over, doesn't look like. And that's just great. Either provide a different name, remove aside, or delete the existing file. Okay, so now what I have to do, this is why I do these live, because this is just real life. We are going to go to FWP photo and tutorial, Unsplash. We're going to go and find. So right here, I don't know how well that's coming up on screen. So let me zoom in on this, because this is an issue that you'll run into, and you can overcome it. So let me just do that. There we go. Down here, down here, we have the file name, which this one is the gen.tiff. All right, that's the first Generace image that I created earlier. This is the one where I put the table on it when I was just practicing, trying to understand how to use the Generace. Well, if I wanted to move this other image over into this particular folder, by clicking and dragging at least, then what I need to do is change this name, and we'll just label this. I'll leave gen in there, and then just add table. All right, you can rename your files whatever you want. So now that I've renamed that particular file, I can grab this file and drop it into the Unsplash folder. So now all three of those images can live together. Now, let me show you a different method. We're going to come back to, or I'm sorry, we're going to come over here, grab this file again. This is the original file. I'm going to hit Genswap, and I am going to make something completely wild over here. And you know what? I want to get rid of everything. Okay, so we'll just go, we're just going to go crazy. I'm just going to paint around this. All right, so I think that'll work. And we're going to go with early morning forest with trees and animals. We'll see what we get. uh, Early morning forest with trees and animals. You know, like again, using nouns, right? Early is a adjective. Morning is potentially a noun. I don't know. I'm not like some English major. I know that forest is a noun, trees and animals. And, you know, part of me is still learning, do I need to write this in complete sentences or do I need to write this in partial sentences? Do I just list the words and that would generate something? But in theory, I just want this kettle to be in a forest with trees, early morning sunrise type photo, and some animals. So we'll go with it. All right. I like what it did with the early morning forest, sort of. It's like some paint. You know, your prompts hopefully will come out better than, or hopefully your prompts are better than the ones that I create. But I'm going to go ahead and click and drag and drop that back over there. I should get that same pop-up error saying that I have a file with the name that I absolutely need to change. Now, if you get that, you have two different options. You can go to your Finder or Explorer, find that photo, change the name, or you can come over to the actual photo, hit the export button, export it to disk, and now you can save this wherever you need to. So for me, I need to go back to this folder, and then I need to click in here and I can change the name to whatever I need it to be. So I'm just gonna come all the way over here. So that way, and the reason I'm keeping the first half of the name is so they all stay next to each other. All right, and then I'll just label it forest. We'll go with a TIFF, Pro Photo, all this. You can change whatever you want for your export settings. These are just the settings I'm gonna go with. I'll hit save. And so now it is saving into that folder. Now, what this does is it gives you two copies of this particular image, right? I have the copy that's saved in my generative creations folder. And if I come to Unsplash, you can see I have the copy that I just saved over there through hitting the export. This is something you have to be aware of because if you think you moved it by hitting that export, you actually didn't. You just saved it into another location. But if I come to generative creations, I can just right click and I should be able to delete this, move to Luminar trash like so. And so now I have a file in the trash and then I can empty the trash. And this is how you can keep hard drive space from being overutilized, especially if you're making tons of edits using the generative erase or generative swap features. Now, a few notes. This is something that is found at the catalog level of Luminar Neo right now. Genswap and GenErase, these are catalog level resources or tools. And what that means is you have to navigate to the folder that has your images inside of it. And then you will click on whatever file you want to work on. You can see I threw some fireworks onto one of these photos and that's kind of what came out. And I thought it came out pretty decent. But you know what? I want to do some Genswap with this particular file. And what I'm going to do is make my brush size quite large because I want to mask out all of this. All right. Notice I'm going over the edges and I'll come back and mask around the person there. But I'm going over the edges a little bit because you want to make your mask just a little bit larger than what you need it to be. And I'm going to hit the person just a little bit, not a whole lot. And I may have too much on the mountains there, so this is a perfect opportunity to click deselect, come back over here, larger brush, and just kind of clean up what's on there, as well as here, maybe even clean up this area. Doesn't have to be a perfect mask, and I think that that'll work out, just like so, okay? So now I want to make this moon and stars with galaxy background. And then we're going to go ahead and hit swap. And we'll let this think itself through, and we'll see what comes up. Just always having to wait, but they don't take too long. This doesn't take too long to populate the overall image. It is a larger space, and there we go. Wow. So that did not come out too well. It is what it is, right? So now what I need to do is click on, you know what? I'm actually going to change this, and I'm just going to go with moon and stars and hit swap. Let's see what happens. Because if you don't get what you like, what you can do is just hit swap over and over again until you get what you want. The only downside to that is you do have to wait, and that's why I'm saying it'd be nice to have some result over here on the right hand side, so that way, or wherever, it could be anywhere on the screen, there's plenty of real estate, and then you can kind of look through each one to see what fits, and if neither one of those results that come back fits, then hit swap again. It's like warping this person's head. So let me go with deselect, and I need to make my brush size a little bit smaller here, probably even smaller than that, and paint this away from the subject, because that did not come out the way I was hoping for it to. So now let's try this again. And I don't know why it's giving me two broken moons. AI technology is still learning how to kind of mold itself together. So it is one of those things where I was, I'm still trying to figure it out myself and how it fits into my overall workflow. I personally like to manually do composites, and this is essentially an artificial or automatic composite workflow, if you will. And it just gives some very odd results sometimes, like these. So I would not want to use either of these. I put moon and stars, and it gave me two moons. Like, I only needed one moon. And, you know, that is something that you have to be aware of. This is just how the technology is working right now. Looks like this came from some kid's book. Just looking at the stars and how all of this looks like it came from a kid's book. And if that's what you're going for, then, you know, voila, there you go. But that's not what I would like to see. So I think the technology still has some work to do and is by far not ready for, you know, like you could do some cool stuff like this photo here. That actually came out pretty decent. I like the lighting on it. It matches with everything else. And the only prompt that I used there was wooden table. And then this campfire one, it worked out well as well. The only downside is it wasn't supported by anything. So you just got this thing that's kind of floating, and that doesn't make much sense. So it doesn't work quite like the Adobe generative fill, but it's still something that is in the right direction. And, my hat goes off to everyone who's figuring out this whole AI movement and adding this into the photography software, because I truly don't fully understand it. I can appreciate it, but I don't fully understand it. My hope is at some point we start to see improvements on the results that we're getting out of these AI tools, especially at least in Luminar. I think the ones in Photoshop, those come back pretty decent. I haven't heard too many people give a hard time about those, so I'm not going to belabor that point. So there you have it, Luminar, got this camera up, Luminar Neo Genswap AI. Now, as Mark pointed out earlier, as long as you are not violating the user agreement, then you're good to use the generative information that comes back as your or as for commercial work. Now, I did leave the link to the user guidelines of the generative AI tools in the description box. I highly recommend you go and check that out, because there are some other things on that particular page that I think is of value for everyone who's interested in using this particular tool in their workflow, and you should probably be familiar with how that stuff works. Is generative AI a replacement to Adobe? Not at this point. All right. Is the Genswap AI comparative or competitive to the Adobe one? Not at this point. However, giving them some time to really develop this and hone it in, at least for the things that I was showcasing, right? If you are, everyone's going to get different results. And this is just my opinion. All right, so take it as just that. Don't take it as it's the law or the rule, because I know that there's going to be a lot of people who say, hey, this is actually a really great tool and I'm getting great results. And I completely understand that. And, maybe it's my fault. I just don't know how to write prompts and write the prompts the way that they need to be written in order to get the results that I'm looking for. So that's something I just got to play around with, and you never know what you're going to get. So it's like a box of chocolates, as Forrest Gump would say, or at least his mama would say. And I'm not quite sure if I'm okay with that, knowing that I have to spend so much time, and if I don't get something I like, I have to hit swap again and let it run for a few more seconds, and then hit swap again and let it run. Having multiple results show up, even if it's only 3, is actually extremely helpful, because that allows me to kind of look through them and say, okay, I got something I could use by, using these 3. It's got to be time effective. But I understand new technology, new workflows. Everyone is still learning how this all kind of plays together. So hopefully you found some value in today's content. If you did, then please smash the like button. And I'm sorry I'm so stuffy right now. It's actually quite annoying. But with that being said, if you found value in the video, please smash the like button, or in the stream, smash the like button. Subscribe if that's something you haven't done already and you want to see more content around photo editing software. And then last but not least, if you want to follow me over on Vero, you can do so at Free Will Photos. I do post there kind of regularly, but I'm always looking at other people's photos and, liking them, commenting, stuff like that. So I'm more engaging with others there than I'm expecting people to engage with me. And it's just a cool way for me to stay connected with the community in a space where, others are also sharing their work and things of that sort. So hopefully that's something you're interested in, and I'd love to hang out with you over on Vero. If you got questions about anything, you can leave me an email at freewillphotos@gmail.com, or you can come over to my website, fill in the contact form, and I do get back to pretty much every form of communication. Some things take a little bit longer than others, but usually within a day or two, I do respond. So until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.